Welcome back, everyone, to our fourth session of the day. We've had lunch. Hopefully, everyone's feeling a little more with it now. And of course, we should start seeing some of our wonderful US audience joining us as well. So welcome if you're joining us for the first time. Do jump straight into the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. Are you currently self-employed, freelance, contracting, or are you employed? And of course, let us know what you're looking to get out of this session. So, before I hand over, I just need to say a massive thank you again to all the speakers for today, everyone who's attending, and our phenomenal event sponsors who really went out on a limb as the event kind of changed formats a few times. One, of course, is Kim and L&D Free Spirits. Also, Little Man Project and Evolve L&D. So thank you all for making today possible. Kim, everyone's here to listen to you, not me, so I'm going to shut up, get out of the way. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Tom. So I'm not going to start off with a load of waffle. Basically, this session is all about knowing the differences between freelancing, contracting, and consulting. Even if you aren't a self-employed professional, it's useful to know what these terms mean and which one would be best for you if you decided to go self-employed. Now, I'm going to be looking at it from not just the freelance contracting consulting side, but where does this fit with skill sets and that kind of stuff as well, plus some pros and cons. Okay, so we need to first of all set the baseline. Now, you could ask 10 people what freelancing is, and you'll get 10 different answers. They'll probably be around the same kind of thing, but people have their own view of what each of these terms means. So I'm just going to share a couple of bits from the Cambridge Dictionary online. So freelancing is basically doing particular pieces of work for single organizations rather than working all the time for one person. Contracting is where you have a legal agreement to work with someone or to have work done for you. And consulting is giving advice on a particular subject. So remember, these aren't my terms. These are from the Cambridge Dictionary. So this is where we're setting the baseline. Now, you may be thinking, well, why is it important to understand the distinctions? Because it's really going to make a difference in how you position yourself if you're applying for roles, whether it's a contracting role, whether it's a freelance, or whether it's a consulting role. It's going to make a difference in how you position yourself, maybe how you market yourself, maybe the types of clients that you're targeting. It makes a difference when you're looking for agency work, and makes a difference how much you charge. Now, like I said, these are the official ones, and I do like this graphic of sorting all our Smarties into different colors. So I love that. If you like me, I dabble in a lot of different things. I would class myself as being a freelancer, but I also do consulting and contracting as well. So sometimes you would merge some of these. The lines get a little bit blurred, and it's really depending on, yes, Joe, variety is the spice of life. It depends on if you're only doing one thing or if you've got a diverse skill set. All right, so the freedom of freelance. Now, when people think about a freelancer, you kind of get this picture of somebody sat on a beach or traveling around, you know, doing a bit of work here, drinking a margarita, that kind of thing. You have visions of freelancers being, you know, like it's van life. A lot of those people are freelancers, but in reality, many freelancers have, you know, desk space. I have my own office in my house. It's, you know, spare bedroom, but it is my office. And a lot of them work exactly the same as an employed person in a remote position. It's just you working from your dedicated space at home rather than in an office. We're not all swanning about. I'd love to be working from a beach, but I'd have to be in the shade because otherwise it burst into flames. So freelancing is kind of like the independent work model where services are provided on a project by project basis. So you'll have a client come to you, they need, for instance, some e-learning building, or they need you to do the virtual facilitation on some courses that they've got written. Both of those are some examples of some of the freelance work that I've done. And you price them either, on a day rate, or you might give them a project fee. And it's, you get the gig, you do the gig, you get paid. So it's very, very flexible, and you can usually work with multiple clients at once. Last year I was doing quite a bit where I had a couple of days with one client, a couple of days with another client. I actually had 2 clients last year, and their deadlines were on the same day. And honestly, I was at the top of the tree with that because the timings didn't quite just fit, and then someone pushed something back. And so that's one of the cons of working with multiple clients at the same time. But it's really invigorating because nothing's the same. You've got different tones of voice, different projects, and it's really invigorating for me. I'm going to go through some pros and cons. First off, it's super flexible. You can choose who you're working with. You can choose, what kind of project. You can choose speciality, all of that kind of thing. It's super flexible. You often have the autonomy to, do what you want. You've got a deadline, you're working towards that deadline, but you've got the autonomy to market yourself, to develop your business however you want. You've got that freedom and the flexibility. Diversity is one of the major draws for freelance work, and it is down to the client base. So when I first started out, I was marketing myself as a contact center training specialist. And then I did some work for transportation, healthcare, university, manufacturing, construction. So I've kind of not done much in the contact center dedicated space, but the types of clients that I've been working with has been absolutely amazing. And I've had to pick up so many different skills and I've been exposed to so many different ways of working that this diversity is a massive draw for me for freelance life. And ultimately, you make the decisions. You decide what you want to do, when you want to work, who you want to work for, and how you want to do it. You make the decisions for your business and for your future. So just looking at the comments. So Linnea, I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name. I'm just looking. Interns and subcontractors. Yeah, subcontractors are really good for the freelance side of things because you can basically pick them up when you need them and only pay for what you need rather than having people throughout the year. And so some cons on here, it is a variable income. You don't work, you don't get paid. You're off sick, you don't get paid. When you're first starting out, it can be a bit of a shock because you're so used to the employed lifestyle where you're getting a monthly set income. That stops when you're a freelancer. The easiest way that I found to work as a freelancer was taking these smaller jobs, these smaller gigs, and some companies would have different payment terms. So the easiest way I found was to do enough of those and to do them consistently. So you start building that rolling income coming in. Like I know that I did some work for somebody in September, and when I invoiced them, I know that money's coming in November because they run 60-day payment terms. So you start, when you do more work, you start to build that rolling income. And you know that if you have a little bit of a dip in your working, that I've still got something coming in from that gig that I finished last month. I've still got something else coming in. So variable income can be a real struggle to get your head around when you first start out as a freelancer. The lack of stability can also be a bit of a shock, because if you are on a dip and you don't know where your next client's coming from, you don't know, you know that you've got 1 or 2 invoices due to come in the next, month or 2, but then that's it. You can start feeling quite anxious. And then you start panic marketing, which is where you're trying to just push as much content out there as possible to get a potential client. So that can be something to really get your head around when you first start out. There are no benefits unless you create them for yourself. So when you're employed and you might have gym membership, you might have an account card, sickness, pension, all of that kind of stuff. You don't get any of that when you're a freelancer. I'm making it sound all doom and gloom, but the freedom and the flexibility and the diversity massively make up, for me personally, all of these negatives. And the last one is, you've got to get your hustle on. You've got to leverage your contacts. You've got to leverage your network. You've got to go out there, put yourself out there, make connections, find potential clients, not just within the L&D industry. That's something that people think, well, I'll just connect with L&D people and they'll come to me for work. But if you're wanting to put yourself out in, let's say, in manufacturing or retail, you need to also be connecting with people in that space and, having a bit of hustle without sales, because nobody likes a salesperson. So Emily's just put a question in: do you find certain strategies work better for finding clients? I like to chatter. Those of you that know me know that I like to chatter. And when you get to know people, they know what you do. When they need you, they'll come to you, as long as they know that you're, available and whatnot. So all of my previous work, I've either done work via recruiters, or it's been word of mouth. So it's people that I've worked with previously, or it's people that have recommended me, or, that I've just been chattering to, and it's been, oh yeah, I've got a project coming up. I'll give you a shout when I'm ready, and all of that. So I think getting that personal connection with your potential clients and maintaining that connection, not just being a one dip wonder, hi, how are you doing? This is what I do, and leaving it for 6 months. Checking in with them would be one of my biggest tips. Yes, looking for clients while you still have work going on. Yes, keeping that momentum, keeping that ball rolling. Great tip. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have contracting. Now, contracting.
Sorry, Kim, just before you dive into contracting, we had a question here about: did you find certain strategies worked better for finding clients?
Yes, just answered that. Network. So leverage your connections. Don't let connections go cold, and make sure that people know what you can do, but don't sell to people. Nobody wants to be sold to, but just make sure that you have a good professional network, and a lot of great stuff will come from that. Okay. So contracting is basically where you are working on a fixed term agreement. So you might be doing Monday, Friday, 9 to 5, or Monday, Thursday, 9 to 5, that kind of thing, but for one client, for one employer. Terms can be 3 months, 6 months, a year. Longest contract I was on was 2.5 years. Shortest one was 3 months, so it does vary. They need you to come in, need you to be basically like an employee for that 3 months. You're only working for them often. And it's basically like being employed, but without benefits. Typically, you'll be integrating with their team a lot more than when you're a freelancer. But there are some pros and cons with these. So first one, stability. You know, for 3 months, you're going to get X amount per day, and you're going to get paid monthly. Some of them pay weekly, and you know that's coming. You know it's pretty much nailed on the head for 3 months or 6 months or whatever, that you're going to get this money coming in. You can earn a lot doing contracting as well. If you want to be part of a team, that's a great bonus as well. You've got that team built in. I'm still connected with some of my team members from previous contracts. And part of that is all to do with networking as well, because if they move somewhere, they'd recommend me to somewhere else because they know what I can do. Possibly some benefits. One company that I worked for had a great well-being side of things. And when I got signed on with them, I could access all of those benefits. So that's a real great one as well. And you don't have to hustle. If the contract's coming through a recruiter, they've done the hustle for you. They've found your client. So it can be an easier way to find work than doing the freelancing. Some people, as what's just been put in the chat, some people do the contracting but also do other work on the side as well. I know that I have done ad hoc work for clients before while I've been in a full Monday, Friday, 9 to 5 contract. So it is possible, but it just means that you have to do more out of hours work to service your other clients. So the cons for this would be less autonomy, because you're basically like an employee. Set duration. It could be a con for some people, it may be a benefit. But if you're 2 months into a 3-month contract and you're thinking, I've got this other client chasing me for a really lucrative piece of work, then you're thinking, well, actually, I've still got another month left on that. So there is the set duration side of things, which could be a pro, could be a con. It just depends. There could be limited opportunities. Now, when I'm saying this, I'm meaning more that you're basically in this gig for the set amount of time. If you were thinking of like attending these webinars, you would need to ask permission or do it in your lunchtime or catch up out of hours. So the opportunity, the freedom that you get when you're a freelancer and you can set your own timescales and things like that, you may get a lack of that when you're contracting. Not always, but that's just something to bear in mind. And then IR35. Now, this is one for the UK freelancers and contractors out there. If you don't know what IR35 is, it's basically a government legislation that was put into place, or regulation, to stop people being hidden employees. And what that means is if a company falls within a certain set of rules and the contract is over 3 months, it may fall within IR35, which means even if you are a limited company, you need to go through an umbrella company. The umbrella company will take a cut of your day rate. They will pay your tax and your national insurance, usually pay into a pension for you as well. There are benefits that go along with that, but it can take you can take a hit on your day rate with that. So IR35 is something to look out for. Not all contracts are within IR35. Some of them are outside. Depends on the company size and a few other factors as well. So that's something to look into if you are considering contracting. Doing these contracts, they're great if you're an instructional designer, e-learning developer, video developer, that kind of thing. So doing the actual design things are great when you're doing contracting, because you can get in and see the project and potentially alter the trajectory of the project, rather than when you're a freelancer and you're just coming in to do the design work. So it can be really fulfilling doing that and going to the meetings and doing the project management side of things as well. So it can be a great way. And like I said, you can earn a lot of money doing these. So yeah, even the mention of IR35 makes me want to cry a bit. Yes, I'm with you on that. And James put into chat, networking is hard, doesn't come naturally for many. This is true. And if you're not into, networking, if you're not an extrovert, it can feel sometimes like an uphill struggle, but you do need to persevere with it a little bit because it's only going to benefit you. If you're not great going to face-to-face events, then look for online networking. If you don't want to get on camera, look for like the Learning Network, the Slack channel in there, where you can just connect with people and chat with people. So there's lots of different ways that you can network that will work for you. Okay, so the last bit is consult the consultant. All right, so have you noticed anything about the images that we've been using? So the first one, you've got a lovely lady on the beach, and that's, your stereotypical freelancer. They're just swanning about, doing bits of work here and there. And then the contractor was on a Zoom meeting, they've got the Zoom meeting in front of them. And then this one, consult the consultant, you've got somebody showing something, you've got the audience is listening to them. And that's because the consulting is often seen as more of a strategic element. So you go in and you're setting the L&D strategy, you're solving specific challenges, you go in and you're doing assessment, you're doing all of these things that are sometimes seen as a higher level than freelancing. But that's not to say that consulting is any more, beneficial than freelancing. Freelancing, you have a massive amount of impact that you can create. But this is for people looking at it. And this is what I was saying about how you're positioning yourself. I would position myself as a freelancer, but I can also do the consulting and the contracting. It just depends what the gig is. And this is what I was saying about how you're positioning, what type of clients you're going for. So there's the 5 things you need to do: pitch, publish, produce, profile, and partner. The 5 Ps. Thank you, Digital Learning Architect. Thank you very much. So the pitch is the position. Okay, so pros of being a consultant: you can have a high impact because it is more about the strategy side of things. It's more about the planning. It's more about the bit before or after the actual design piece. But that's not going to say that you wouldn't do the design piece. You might. It all depends. Like I say, I do a bit of everything. You might too. You might be able to charge more as a consultant because of that idea that is more of a senior way of working, a senior self-employed professional, that you could potentially make your day rate more than if you're positioning yourself as a freelancer. So that's something to consider when you're looking at your pitch. Potential for long-term clients. So if you go in and you do an absolutely banging strategy for somebody, chances are when they need something else or they've got another project, they're going to get you back because they know the impact. And if you're doing the design and the evaluation and all of that thrown in together, they know what they're getting for the money. Absolute bang for their buck. So potential for long-term clients is amazing. And you may also get a boost in your profile as well. So higher profiles for consultants. You may get speaking opportunities if you're branding yourself in this way. So that's something to consider with consultants. Cons: same as a freelancer, variable income. It's going to be up, it's going to be down. Lack of stability. You don't know where your next gig's coming from unless you're booking several in advance. But oftentimes, if a client needs something, they're like, oh yeah, I need someone next week. And, are you available? Are you not available? This is the thing. Limited benefits again, and you've got to do the hustling. You've got to do the conversations. You've got to do webinars, get yourself out there, let people know what you can do and how you can have impact on their customers or on their staff or however you're positioning yourself. So you got to kind of think which is right for you. And I've got 3 different just comparisons. So freelancer, super flexible, irregular income, project-based. Contractor, financial stability, work within a team. It can be lovely when you're used to working by yourself to suddenly have a team that you can chat with. So it can be really nice. Defined scope and duration, and then consultant, strategic, increased income, potentially, not always. And you can get a deeper client relationship because you're with them for longer than, for instance, if you're a freelancer just coming in to do a design, you don't get involved in a lot of the roundabout things, whereas as a consultant, you might. So just conscious of time. My final thought would be being self-employed will give you the ultimate freedom to work how you want, with who you want, on what you want. You know, if you get offered a gig and you're like, this is going to be an absolute nightmare, or this is going to be the most boring thing I've ever designed, don't do it. You know, the more work you do, the more you start that rolling income model, the more freedom you will have to actually have the courage to say no to the things that you don't want to do. This is the freedom that a lot of employed people don't often see. They you know, they get the order through, they complete the order, deliver it, design it, whatever. They don't have the option of saying no a lot of the times, whereas you do when you're self-employed. But caveat, it's not for everybody. If you are somebody that doesn't have any savings, it's going to be hard for you, for sure. If you're somebody that likes to have 2 weeks paid vacation time, you're going to have to factor that in because you won't be paid when you're having time off. If you really rely on having a set income every single month, it may not be the right lifestyle for you because it is a lifestyle. And as Joe's put, unemployable now, I would say I am unemployable now because absolutely love being a freelancer, contractor, consultant, whatever you want to term me. Love it, unemployable. And yeah, that is pretty much it. We've got 2 minutes left. If there's any question coming out, Tom, but yeah, drop the mic. Thank you all very much.
Okay, so the Q&A is open. If anyone wants to drop anything in there, you are more than welcome to. But Kim, that was fantastic. I think it's really interesting. I think we often kind of group all these things together in a big lump. One question I've got actually is, do you think someone needs to decide I am one of these 3, or can you do these
No,
sort of as they come up?
no. I tell people I'm a freelancer, but if someone asks me to do a consulting gig, I'm like, yeah, fine. But I don't know. I think sometimes that people can be like, oh, well, being a consultant gives me this extra power. I'm like, oh, this fabulous consultant. But I'm like, well, you're no different from I am. From me, I'm a freelancer, but I can also do what you do. So I think sometimes there's that mental thing that, and that's what I was trying to get across, that people think that freelancers aren't as good as consultants. You are. You can absolutely boss it, and without you, consultants don't have something to do, and vice versa. So yeah, I think don't pigeonhole yourself unless you're super niched in something specific. So if you do training evaluation as a consultant, absolutely say you're a consultant and only that if you don't do anything else. But why pigeonhole? Open your mind.
Love it. We've got a couple of good questions. Could you speak a little bit on setting rates as a newer self-employed instructional designer?
Okay, so this is something that I talk about on my Free Spirits of L&D podcast. So there's been 2 episodes out at the minute, shameless plug there. It's a really difficult question to answer. The cheapest I have worked is £200 a day. The most expensive I have worked, this is talking day rate, is £450 a day. All for instructional design type things, but with consulting a little bit thrown in. I know that people charge £1,000 a day, £700 a day, £150 a day. It's like, it's one of these, how long's a piece of string? And I've said to clients before when they're asking me what my day rate is, and I'm like, well, how much of my brain do I have to use? If I'm like maxing out my skill level and I'm doing e-learning, face-to-face, virtual, video, if I am doing everything in my skill set, my rate's higher. If they need it right now, my rate's a little bit higher. If I'm just building an e-learning and that's it, and I don't need to do any of the extra stuff, any of the other stuff, then I might do it for a little bit lower because, you know, I don't have to dip into as many resources mentally or use different apps or subscriptions. And if they need it in 6 months and I can do it at my own pace, then I can just fit it in nicely among other things. So it is a very personal choice.
And the other one,
average is usually between 250 and 400. The average for what people pay.
Awesome. Only other question we got here on the Q&A was from Joe. How might one go back to normal work if we wanted to?
Find the right employer. Tom, you're probably one to answer this because you dabbled back in employment. So I'm going to throw this right back at you. I'm unemployable. I wouldn't. No carrot is big enough to get me back into employment.
I mean, I'm working for myself again, so I'm probably the bad example here. But I would agree with Kim. Pick the company very carefully because you've probably got used to having your own way more than you probably should, and also, you know, you are no longer an owner of the organization that you work in. Therefore, whilst you want to be successful, you want to do good work, etc., 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 you do not actually benefit anymore by doing extra. So you have to get out of the mindset of, yeah, I'll just do extra because that's fine. No. If you're being employed again, you have to revert back to the mind, or I would advise you revert back to the mindset of, I'm now an employee. If I do an extra 10 hours and I'm not being paid for that, I am donating my time to a company. That sounds a bit odd. You donate time to charity, not to companies. So you have to have that real switch of mindset. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. That's the same when you're doing contracting, though, as well. You're being paid Monday, Friday, 9 to 5. If you work over those hours, you're not getting paid for that. That's not been set out in your terms of agreement. Some companies will allow you to take time back, but that's a private agreement. So I think that for me, I fell out of love with contracting because it was a little bit too much like being employed. Yeah. So I prefer the freelance life.
Fantastic. Well, I think that was a phenomenal conversation. Thank you all so much for joining in the chat and in the Q&A. Thank you, Kim, for these great insights. There will be a link in the description of this episode to L&D Free Spirits, who are one of the sponsors for this event, but are also Kim's company and community. If this is something that interests you, or if you are a freelancer, I would strongly suggest looking at the community because there's some really fantastic stuff going on over there. With that, we're going to wrap this one up. Our next session is at 3 o'clock in 25 minutes time with Leno, the Hypocrisy of L&D. So a little bit of a holding the mirror up talk, which is always good fun. And I'll see you all then. Kim, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. And thank you